Welcome to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, the show that helps you sort through all of the trends, new and old, of the fitness world. We'll talk about yoga, running, Zumba, weightlifting, and everything in between. Whether you've got your fitness routine down to a science or you're just starting out and looking for direction, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Fitness Podcast.
All right, thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ty Adranis, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about the latest trend in all the fitness gear out there. That is the Peloton, and just basically web-enabled fitness devices in general. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Nordic, the Echelon, and the Mirror as well. So Peloton, full disclosure, I have a Peloton bike. Yes, I do. I've had it for 2 years. And Peloton is not just the bike. They also have a treadmill that they just simply call the Tread. Now, I think it's kind of bizarre that they're sticking with the same name of Peloton, because I think the bike should be called a Peloton and the Tread should be called something completely different outside of the Peloton brand name. Why, do you ask? Well, that's because Peloton, it is literally a biking term. It is the central group of bicyclists in a biking event. That's what a Peloton is. And so cool, you've got this bike called the Peloton, and then you have a Peloton Tread. Well, yeah, that doesn't really work. So anyway, that's just one of the little nitpicky things that I'm going to be talking about. I have a bike, full disclosure, I've had it for 2 years. You're going to get it loud and clear that I love my bike, that it's changed my life, and it has. So why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it? What is a Peloton? What is it? Well, the long and the short of it is a $2,000 to $3,000 bike that you can get that goes nowhere. That's a pretty big range, Ty. Why is it $2,000 to $3,000? Well, because there's a lot of different accessories you can get. You have to subscribe for the first year. The subscription is $40 a month. You may need, sets of biking shorts. You're definitely going to need shoes. Some people get gloves. I wear gloves myself. So with all the accessories, by the time everything is said and done and you're crying at your bank, you're looking at between $2,000 and $3,000. I've blown at least $3,000. Okay. And I say at least because I've also done a bunch of other stuff that we'll talk about later. So why is Peloton such a big deal? What is it about the bike that has people going absolutely bonkers? Well, simply put, it's interactive and there's a ton of peer pressure. That's the big difference between it and, say, the Nordic or the Echelon, is there is a ton of peer pressure. So you join these social communities, right? And everybody's comparing the results they're getting and the fitness boosts that they're having and how much weight they're dropping and how much better they feel. And every day you've got 200,000 plus people just in the Facebook group. That's the main Peloton group. There's a ton of subgroups, and we're going to be talking about all the social media stuff with it later. But you basically got 200,000 people saying, want to ride? Let's ride. Come ride with me at any given time of the day, any day of the week, any week of the month, any month of the year, all the time, all day, all night, bugging you on your social media saying, come ride with me. And finally, you're like, fine, I'll ride. So you get in 2 or 3 good rides a week, anywhere from, 5 minutes to 90 minutes. There's a bunch of different types of rides, and we're going to be getting into those too. And we're going to be talking about the instructors and what the best instructors are and all that good stuff, at least in this host's opinion. Okay. You talk to 10 different Peloton people, you're going to get 10 different answers. But at any rate, you get pressured a lot. And it's about the community. The community is really what makes the Peloton special. And the marketing geniuses over at Peloton have really created not so much a following as they've created a cult. You heard me right. Peloton is a cult. I will happily admit it. If you ride the bike, you will understand. There are some really bonkers zealots out there. There are stories of people that have like left their families behind to go chase their dreams of being a Peloton instructor. I mean, it's always failed 100% of the time. These people have not made it to be a Peloton instructor, but I mean, like, seriously, it is the craziest fad I've ever seen. And I've had a ThighMaster, I've had the original Nordic track, I've had a Bowflex, I've had the Pilates machines, I've done the rowing with that weird bowl of water fan thing. I forget what the rowing machine is called, but it was on a House of Cards. I tried one of those even, and nothing is like the Pelotons. Now, the bike specifically, I mean, the tread we'll talk about some other time, because it has a following also, but at a outrageous price tag. I mean, just the tread itself costs $4,250. But then by the time you put an isolated circuit in your house, because the thing has a 15 amp draw, some states that'll cost you $2,000 to do. You know, like California, $2,000. You know, other states, you know, anywhere from $500 to $2,000 to put in an isolated circuit, you know, for your Peloton. Not a plug, a circuit, as in the breaker. Needs to be a 15 amp breaker, and it needs to be like the only thing on it. So, and by the time you get the shoes and the subscription and all that stuff, you're talking between $5,000 and $7,000 for a treadmill. Not like an entire gym in your house, not a multi-purpose machine like a Marcy or any of that stuff. No. For just a treadmill, $5,000 to $7,000. So, yeah. So what else is great about the Peloton? Well, it is made very, very well. It's one of the best made spinning bikes I've ever used. I've used the Sunny and a bunch of other stuff. You know, I wish that the handlebars had a forward and back adjustment like most other spinning bikes do. If you go to like a Cycle Bar or any of the other spinning studios, you know, you get this forward and back adjustment on the handlebars. You don't get that on the Peloton. You get a forward and back seat adjustment, you get a height adjustment on the seat, you get a height adjustment on the handlebars. That's it. Okay, yes, you can adjust the tilt on the screen, but whatever. You get a giant Android tablet that's permanently fixed to the Peloton. No, you're not supposed to stream Netflix on it or anything like that. There are some stories of people hacking their bike to do that, but it voids your warranty, so kind of a bad idea. And why would you want to watch Netflix on the bike? Just put a TV in the background. If you can afford $2,000 to $3,000 for a bike that goes nowhere, you can afford an iPad, okay? The Echelon, for example, it doesn't have a permanently fixed screen. You have to get a tablet. If you buy an Echelon, sometimes there's specials where you can get a free tablet that goes with it, but the holder is like one of those pinchy holders, and it's made out of plastic, and the screen vibrates, and it could fall out, and it could lock up, and it could have choppy video and all that stuff. So although the Echelon is far less expensive than a Peloton, you kind of get what you pay for. It's a great bike. The Echelon is a great bike, but if you can afford it, the Peloton is better. The Nordic, what's the Nordic got that the Peloton doesn't? Well, the Nordic has tilting. So say your instructor says, now we're going to bicycle uphill. Not only does the resistance get turned up, and it gets turned up by the instructor, not you. Whereas with the Peloton, you have to manually do it. So your resistance goes up, and you do have some control over it. You can change it if you don't like what the instructor is doing. But the bike tilts too. So you're going uphill, the bike tilts up. That's kind of a cool gimmick, I suppose, but it doesn't really change the ratio of angles between your hips and your feet. So really, it's just a gimmick. And to me, it's one more thing on the bike that could just break. Okay? So I don't really like a lot of things that can break, because that means a lot of maintenance. So yeah, that's kind of a turnoff for me. So when we come back, we're going to take a little break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the instructors and the community, but we're going to focus mostly on the instructors when we come back. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
You want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do. All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Ty Adronis, and we were just talking about the Peloton. What is it, you ask? Yeah, we covered that in the last segment. Basically, to sum it up, it is a $3,000 bike that goes nowhere, but it's one of the latest trends in fitness equipment, and that would be web-enabled fitness devices. So we're talking specifically about the Peloton, but we're covering other stuff. In this segment, we're about to talk about the instructors. There are, is this right? 21? I only ride like 5 instructors, but there are apparently 21 instructors. There are 2 studios that create these spin classes. One's in New York City, the other one is in London. And most times of the day, most days of the week, you can find a live class. And during times when there's not a live class that's to your liking, well, there's plenty of on demand, because every class is recorded and you can take it later if you want to. And you can go against everyone who's ever taken the class. Everyone. So it's kind of cool because they have this leaderboard thing off on the side. But at any rate, what we're trying to say is that every instructor is a little bit different. Every instructor is. And so we're going to go through some of my favorite instructors. We're not going to cover all 21 instructors. One of my favorites is out of London. Her name is Leanne Hainsby. I've only taken one of her classes live, because if you want to take a live class from Leanne Hainsby, you either need to get up at 2 in the morning or stay up until 2 in the morning U.S. time. I'm in the central time zone. So, yeah, Leanne Hainsby is a dancer. She apparently was a Victoria's Secret model at one time, I think. I can't verify that because there's nothing anywhere that says whether or not she was. But there is, if you do a Google image search for Leanne Hainsby, you'll find a picture of her in Victoria's Secret pajamas, sitting in a Victoria's Secret chair, getting her makeup done for what looks like a Victoria's Secret event. So I don't know if she was just a dancer for Victoria's Secret off on the side, or whether she's like an actual Victoria's Secret model or what, but we're kind of getting off the rails here in Victoria's Secret land. So she's one of my favorites. She's really hard on you, though. Like, really hard on you. Like, even her low impact rides are not all that low impact. Jess King is the same way. Like, anybody that rides Peloton knows who Jess King is. She's one of the superstar instructors. She's a dancer also. She was a dancer for Cirque du Soleil, and she either did Dancing with the Stars or So You Think You Can Dance. I'm not sure which of those she did, one of those dancing shows. I don't watch them, so I'm not sure which one, but she's kind of like a celebrity dancer person. There's a couple of Hannahs. Let's do some of the guys. There's Matt Wilpers and Dennis Morton. Those are the 2 guys that I'll generally ride with. Dennis more so. Wilpers, I don't know. I don't like the way he talks, so it doesn't really do it for me. But I love Dennis, because Dennis will talk about what's going on in your body, and both of these guys handle what's known as the Power Zone crowd. All right. And Power Zone is, well, we'll cover that in a different podcast. What is Power Zone? But they're the Power Zone guys. There's a Heart Zone people. That would be Christine Dercole. She's like one of the only 2 of the instructors that I know of are actual bicycle people. Christine is one of them. She's done like the Tour de France and all that. But let's get into the community before we run out of time in this segment. The community is crazy. As I mentioned in the previous segment, The community is really what makes Peloton so special. The way they drive you to perform and put peer pressure on you to get your stuff done. There's 200,000 people in the official Facebook community alone. The Facebook community, the official one, isn't really to my taste. I like some of the sub-communities, like Peloton Foodies, where they talk about food. Not everything in there is healthy, trust me. But I love cooking, so I dig the Peloton Foodies group. There's Peloton Weight Watchers. There's Peloton. There's meme groups also, like Peloton Not Offended and Swexy Isn't an Effing Word. You know, there's lots of meme groups. There's Peloton After Hours, and lots of meme groups where pretty much the only thing that they talk about that's Peloton related is the other groups. But there's lots of riding groups, lots of them. There's the Power Zone groups. There's the Peloton Wrecking Crew, which is the men's group. There's Fit Fab 40s, Peloton Over 50. So age-related groups, pretty much anything you can think of, fitness-related or otherwise. If you type it in with the word Peloton to search on Facebook, there's a community for it. There's even like Pelo Westeros and other HBO things, which is like started off as Peloton Westeros, just purely a Game of Thrones group. Like, what does Game of Thrones have to do with Peloton? Nothing at all. But Peloton is like a cult. It's its own thing. There's even groups that go to war with each other. There's like the Swexies, and then there's the Swexy Isn't a Word group, and then they don't like each other, and well, not many people like the Swexies, to be honest. But they're a large group. They're one of the largest groups in Peloton. There are over 10,000 people. So there's a lot going on in Peloton. So once you kind of like get your foot in the door, it's like a cult. They're like, come in and join us. And they, there's something for everybody in the Peloton community. Something for everybody. It might be a little bonkers. There's like fan sites just around the instructors. And one of the big things to do when you hit a milestone. Okay, for instance, when you ride 100 rides, they call that your century ride. And you want to do that live on the Peloton. You want to take a live class because the instructor will most likely give you a shout out. They most likely will. They'll say your name, and then you can ride that ride on demand anytime you want, and you'll see the instructor give you the shout out, and it's also good for motivation. But another thing that people do, instead of just taking the live rides for their milestones, like what I just did for my 300th, I went and took it in the New York studio with Jess King, who I had mentioned before. Granted, she got the number of rides wrong. She shouted out, "Congratulations on your 600th ride." I was like, wait, what? No, that's only 300. But, yeah. But, you can go, you can take a ride in the studio anytime you want. It doesn't have to be a milestone ride. If you're in New York, you can always go to the Peloton studio, whether you've got a bike or not. It's an interesting introduction. If you've never ridden before and you go to the New York studio to ride, that would be an interesting introduction for you. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. You go in, it's like taping a live show. It's pretty interesting. So there's all this stuff focused around your milestones and your achievements, and that's what we're going to be getting into in the next segment. We're going to be talking about Peloton and the gamification of exercise, and that is one of the keys to their secret sauce, the secret sauce that is the cult of Peloton. So stick around. We will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ty Adranis, and today we're talking about the Peloton. We've talked a lot about, this $3,000 bike that goes nowhere, and its sister, the Tread, a $5,000 to $7,000 treadmill, and a little bit about the instructors, and now we're going to talk about the principle of gamification of fitness. Now, what is gamification? Well, it's just exactly like it sounds. It's turning something into a game, into a competition, right? So some of the best ways to teach people things is to gamify learning. Right, that's really what coined the phrase gamification, is like e-learning, right? So if you're teaching a group of employees something, it produces better results if you gamify it. If you give them badges for the courses that they pass and certifications, and you make it a competition with rewards, it works. It really does work. So when you're trying to motivate people to do something they essentially don't want to do, because let's face it, most fitness gear turns into a clothing rack after, on February 1st, most fitness gear is like just collecting dust, just a place to hang your clothes. Okay, let's be honest about it. I've done it so many times. All those other pieces of gear that I mentioned, the ThighMaster, the Nordic Track, the Bowflex, the Marcy Body Bar 2000, pretty much all these things that I had eventually ended up gathering dust. And why is that? Why does fitness gear end up gathering dust like that? Well, it's pretty simple, really. Fitness gear gathers dust because there's no motivation to keep using it. It's the grind. It's every day doing the same exact effing thing and not seeing immediate results. I mean, you see results over time, but who's got patience for that? Nobody. So Peloton steps in, and what do? Well, the first thing they do is they say, hey, congratulations on your first ride. Okay? And if you happen to take a live class for your first ride, you're probably going to get a shout out from the instructor. So they give you a little bit of an endorphin boost, like, oh, hey, I'm noticed. I'm here. I'm present. I'm getting a reward. And you get that little boost of endorphins in your brain that says, hey, I like this thing. It makes me feel good. So you're getting immediate results immediately, right? And then after your first 10 rides, you get another badge. 25, you get another badge. 50, you get another. 75, you get another. And then when you hit 100, you not only get a badge, you get a, and I'm going to do air quotes here, free t-shirt. Okay, this t-shirt costs like, I don't even remember what I paid for the shipping on mine, but I remember thinking to myself, I could buy a t-shirt for that. But this t-shirt is special because it's got a 100 on one sleeve, a century on the other sleeve, and it says Peloton across the front of it, and you've got a little Peloton logo on the back of your neck. And when you wear this thing out in public, anybody else that knows what a Peloton is, it's a conversation starter. Oh, you've got your century. How long have you had it? And they're talking to you. It's really weird. For example, a friend of mine and I were in New York. And it wasn't the Century shirt that got attention. She was wearing a jacket that had the Peloton logo on the sleeve. Somebody stopped us In New York. And so in New York, people don't generally talk to each other, right? You know, people tend to ignore each other, walk right by. And if you're talking to somebody else on the street, something's wrong with you. What do you want from me? What are you about to steal from me? And how much money do I need to give you to get you to go away? But no, this nice couple started talking to us about Peloton. They had flown into New York to take a class too. It's this really weird elite thing. And that's another thing that Peloton has done effectively is they've made it elite. And we'll talk about that later. But back to gamification. These endorphin rushes. So at 100, you get your Century shirt. And you're super happy to get it. By the way, if you ride Peloton, do not wash that thing in anything but cold water and do not put it in the dryer any higher than air fluff. Because the thing will shrink. My Century shirt is now a Century half shirt. Thank you very much. I've got a Century half shirt. It looks awful on me. But, yeah. Do not let it shrink. But so you get this t-shirt. And then you get shout-outs. And you keep getting more shout-outs. And one of the biggest endorphins is 1,000 rides. 1,000 rides. Does Peloton give you anything? No. But there's a Millennium Club group on Facebook. So at 1,000 rides, you can join that. It's kind of interesting because Peloton created this framework that the community ran with. Okay, the community turned around and said, "Oh, gamification, we're going to take it to a whole other level." And then they started adding stuff way back. They started adding stuff that was like way beyond the bike. They've got floor exercises and badges and games having to do with those. They've got entire programs like Crush Your Core and Total Strength and a bunch of other like really zippity-doo-dah names for their courses. But they're actually really good. Really good. And it's pretty cool because Peloton links in directly with Strava and other fitness apps, so you can track your progress. You can set up group rides to take you across the country or whatever. And I realize Echelon and Nordic with iFit can do that also. But they don't, it's just, their community hasn't really taken off. You can't really brag about your badges the same way you can with Peloton. Now, some of the communities that I run, they're going to be making fun of me for saying all this stuff, but that's okay. Whatever. And no, I'm not going to tell you which communities I run. Not going to make that a thing. But it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So what I mentioned something else. I mentioned that the gear a little bit. I mentioned that, you've got this shirt or this jacket, the Century shirt that can start conversations and whatnot. Okay, so there's this other thing going on with Peloton called the Peloton Boutique. And they've taken fandom to a whole other level. I mean, they've got names involved like Lululemon and other fitness brands that this stuff is expensive. And so that plays a little bit into the elitism of Peloton. I mean, the instructors are even celebrities that we're seeing on Ellen, etc. So when we come back from this next break, we're going to be talking a little bit about the cult of Peloton and what makes it a cult and why is it so elite and where did they get the idea for this? How did this take off the way that it has? So stick around and we'll be right back after this.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Ty Adranis, and I'll be your host. We've been talking a lot about the Peloton and web-enabled devices. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about the cult of Peloton and what happened? How did this fitness craze happen? Like, why are we seeing fitness instructors on Ellen and Good Morning America? And I think Robin Arzon was on. Is that her name? Arzon? Yeah. It's Robin Arzon. So she was just on, I think, Ellen, and it's really weird. It's really weird. I mean, like, you've got whatever side of anything you're on, all the news programs are talking about it. I think a lot of famous politicians have got it. A lot of famous actors and actresses have got it. But they're actually buying it. Very few of these people are, like, given Pelotons. And so why? Why is it so incredibly popular? And what is the deal with the cult of Peloton? Well, I think, here's my theory on it. I think that Peloton took a page straight out of the Apple playbook. All right. Apple computer, whether you're an Apple dude or a PC dude or girl or whatever, whether you like Apple or PC or Samsung or whatnot, you have to admit the marketing over at Apple is genius. Like, genius may not even begin to cover it. The marketing at Apple is totally next level. Because if you look at, like, the hardware, okay, apples to apples, so to speak. If you look at the hardware inside of an Apple and the hardware inside of a PC, exactly the same thing. They work very similar. The operating system, there's a lot of debate about that. But they charge like 2 to 3 times more than you pay for a PC. Just like a Peloton is 2 to 3 times more than you pay for an Echelon or a Nordic or a Sunny or any other spinning bike out there. So why would they do that? Well, the people that can afford it, okay, are elite, right? They give you this sense that, hey, I've got this super awesome thing that you don't have and you can't afford, right? I mean, like a Tesla, okay? There's a lot of problems with Teslas. They leak, I also host the automotive thing, so I'm gonna talk about cars for a second. Teslas leak. The windows leak. All right, it's like a notorious issue with Teslas. Are they worth $100,000 or so? No, they're not. They're not worth that. But the brand is. The brand is worth it for somebody that wants to feel like, hey, everybody, you're jealous, right? So Peloton plays into that too. In fact, at the Houston Galleria, the Peloton showroom is kind of right next to the Tesla showroom. So that should tell you everything you need to know about the elitism that's going on. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing for the marketing. It's also a good thing for the people that get it. Because, like a husband buys the Peloton for his wife for Christmas. Now, don't attack me. Okay, I know a bunch of people were outraged by the ad, like, oh, how could he buy her this for Christmas? It's like calling her fat and she's already wafy. And just so you people know that don't have Pelotons, most Pelotons are bought as presents. All right, especially the ones that the women have. They're bought as presents. They are. My Peloton, I was married once upon a time. I bought it for my wife as a Christmas present. She begged me for it. She never used it. I ended up using it and love it, so I got it in the divorce. But so you buy your significant other, whether you're buying it for husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, dog, whatever. You buy this Peloton. It's like buying someone expensive jewelry. They know, everyone knows that this thing is an expensive piece of gear. And because like Ryan Reynolds is talking about it, and Good Morning America is talking about it, and Greg Gutfeld's talking about it, and Carson Daly's talking about it, and everybody's talking about it. Wow. Now that person feels pretty darn special. So it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant on their part to give you this not just gamified experience, but this elite experience. Because all you have to do is spend $2,000 to $3,000 and you're hanging out with people that have Paganis. You're hanging out with people that buy a second Peloton for their yacht. You're hanging out with people that spend $4,000 at Bagatelle for a brunch. If you know what Bagatelle is, it's a brunch place in New York. So you're hanging out with elites, and it feels good. It feels good. So I'm not saying that everybody that buys a Peloton is rich. There are some people that don't have a whole lot of money that bought one, and they saved up and scrimped for it, and they love it, or they did the monthly payment plan because you can finance the thing. I don't advise doing that, but sometimes financing can be a good deal if you run into a special, if it's like 0%, interest on it or something. But if you can get one, just remember, it also costs you $40 a month. You could have a pretty good gym membership for that. You're paying $40 a month for one piece of gear, unless you get the tread, then you're paying $40 a month for two. But that's the other thing. Your subscription is tied to the gear, not to you. So if you buy a Peloton and then you buy a Peloton tread, that's another $40 a month you got to pay. All right. It's by the serial number of the piece of equipment. You have to pay the subscription on that equipment. You can have as many people on that equipment as you want. That's one of the benefits of having it tied to the piece of gear. I've got 8 different accounts on my bike, for my kids, for my groups, for all kinds of stuff. I've got 8 different accounts. There's only one that I really ride with, though. So, wow, I kind of went off the rails with that, didn't I? It is a cult. It is a cult. And if you can't gather by the way that I talk about it, the people that own the bike really like it. In fact, I probably like the bike the least out of everybody I know that rides. To me, it's just a piece of gear, really expensive piece of gear that if I had to buy it over again, I don't know that I would have spent the $2,000 on the bike, to be honest. Every time they take the $40 out of my account every month for the subscription, I have a little bit of buyer's remorse. But then whenever I look in the mirror, I'm like, this is sweet, because I lost 60 pounds on the thing in 6 months. I'm not kidding. Diet had a lot to do with it too. It was just time. I felt like I was going to have a stroke or a heart attack or something. I already had one in my life. And so it was time to make a change. And Peloton helped me with that. So after this next break, what we're going to be coming back and talking about is all the other stuff, because Peloton is far more than just a bike or a tread. There are all kinds of other programs. I mentioned them a little bit before. There's the crush your core stuff. There's the strength. There's even running. You can do running on the thing. And I don't mean on the tread. I mean running outdoors. They have audio courses as well. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about all that stuff. Go ahead and stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm Ty Adranis, your host for this program, and we've been talking about everything Peloton, the tread, the bike that goes nowhere, the elitism, the classes, the instructors, and speaking of classes, let's talk about everything Peloton has to offer in the way of classes. And no, I'm not just going to break down all the types of bicycling classes. No, we're going much higher level here. So not only do you have cycling, not only do you have running on like the tread, but you have strength. You have a lot of mat work you can do. You have strength, you have yoga, you have meditation to help you fall asleep. There's cardio classes, there's stretching classes. Stretching, yes, that is a class. There's outdoor activities that are audio only, so you can like listen while you're jogging or running or walking. There's walking classes, and there are boot camp classes. Yes, that's right. So Peloton is really like more a virtual gym membership with 200,000 people that are in your group of friends that you want to like encourage each other to actually go to the gym and not just let the gym membership keep taking money. So yeah, those are all the things that Peloton has to offer. And I'll tell you straight up, I'm a type 1 diabetic. All right. And when we talk about food, we're going to be doing a bunch of like cooking stuff. In fact, my next show, I'm going to be doing some diabetic recipes that will knock your socks off. Okay. But I'm a type 1 diabetic, and you know, my feet were starting to swell. I spent 9 months writing a book about, you know, building drones, but I spent 9 months writing a book. And so I called my body, by the time we were done by that, I said body by author because I was large and my feet would swell on a nightly basis. It was just pretty much overall, I was in awful shape. So yeah, that was me. So you're probably asking yourself, dude, why are you hosting a fitness podcast? Because I'm just like you. Yeah, I'm just like you. And I happen to find some stuff that worked for me. And I happen to know quite a bit about the fitness stuff now. And so here I am to host a fitness podcast. But you guys should try this thing out. Just try it out. It doesn't cost you anything. And wow, this is really starting to sound like an infomercial, but it's not. This is honestly a review of the Peloton and educational, letting you guys know what it is. So no, this particular episode has no like Peloton sponsorship whatsoever. Not that I know of anyway. I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm just talking about something that I know about. So welcome to my mind. Seriously, though, you guys should try it out. It costs you nothing to try it out. Just to go down to a showroom. Any major city has a showroom. I'm in the Houston area. We have 2. So, you know, most major cities have a showroom. Just go give the thing a shot. See what it's actually all about, because it's pretty fun. It really is. It's a fun way of exercising. My whole family got into it. Except for the wife that is no more. My kids are into it. Yeah, one of the few things I ended up with was my kids. Thank you. Yeah, Peloton. I'm getting way off the rails. You guys have to pardon me. Sometimes I have conversational ADD and I just kind of jump around a lot. You'll get used to that, though. So more about the Peloton. Like, what about the leaderboards? This is kind of going back to the gamification thing. You can compete against anyone and everyone. You can even filter the leaderboards. So if you've ever been to like a cycle bar or Soul Cycle or any of the spinning type places, they always have a leaderboard. Everybody's competing with each other, right? And that leaderboard is like what, 15 people to 20 people at most. It just depends on how many bikes they've got in the studio. Sometimes I guess they're over the internet or whatever. But no, when you're riding on a Peloton, you're not just riding against everybody else taking the class live. If you're riding a on-demand class, you're riding against everybody that's ever taken the class, right? Everybody that's ever taken it. And you can filter those results. You can filter them for just who's here right now taking it with me. who's my friends, who's people that I follow. You can filter those results on your leaderboard so that you're competing against with the people that, you actually want to compete against instead of Lance Armstrong. I think he might have a Peloton. I know a few professional bicyclists do. So, do you really want to be competing against him? Probably not. But you're also competing against yourself, because getting your PR, your personal record, getting your PR is a big deal, right? Like, oh, I PR'd this ride. It's a big deal. Everybody's like, oh, yay, keep going. This is going to sound so stupid. It really is. But you can give each other virtual high fives while you're riding. You just tap on somebody's name on the leaderboard, give them a high five. They can give you one right back. So there's all these things to keep people interacting with each other, to keep it gamified, to keep it fun, to keep it more than just about riding the bike for 20 minutes to 90 minutes every day, more than just about that. In fact, getting on the bike and actually pedaling is almost secondary. Like the community encouraging you to, being able to rub it in somebody's face that you're competing against, giving high fives. There's people that even date on Peloton. Yep, not kidding. A lot of the Peloton community that are single dates each other. At least I hope they're single. I kind of put my foot in my mouth with that one. But at any rate, a lot of the Peloton community dates each other. There's Peloton singles groups. There's 3 of them that I know of. There's Peloton singles group, there's Pelo singles, and there's PSG Red Room. I don't even want to know. Yeah, I'm imagining 50 Shades of Grey. Maybe it's, you go in there and do contract negotiations. But yeah. So moving along, the Peloton, you should go try it. Go to a store, go check it out, give it a shot. So when we get back after this next break, I know this segment was a little bit short. It's so that I can make the next segment longer. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the community, but we're mostly going to be talking about the bike itself, the maintenance on the bike, the accessories you can get for the bike, the stuff that is out there that people are making for themselves to have the bike be even cooler in their lives. So we will be talking about that right after these messages.
Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets podcast is for you.
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ty Adranis, and we are talking about Peloton today. Yep, Peloton. You've heard about it. You've seen it, no doubt. You've seen the instructors popping up on Ellen and Good Morning America and Fox News and CNN, and you're wondering, what? It's just a bike that goes nowhere. But there's far more to it than that, and I hope you are getting that picture. Let's talk about the bike for a second. Just the bike itself. Okay, forget about the community, forget about the instructors. Let's just talk about the bike and some of the things that are kind of unique about it. First of all, this thing is not light. It's heavy. You can't just go down to a Peloton showroom and buy a bike and take it home. It doesn't work like that. You buy a bike and then it's delivered to you. It might be a week. It might be 2 weeks. If it's during the holiday season, it might even be a month. So if you're buying it as a present, get out ahead of it. Seriously get out ahead of it. But I kept mine upstairs for forever. Upstairs in the upstairs bedroom. Bedrooms here in Texas are gargantuan, all right? And so I had it upstairs. Those guys that delivered it were not happy. This thing weighs so much. It's like carrying a tank upstairs, which is good because you could throw your weight around on this thing. I mean, I'm 6'5". I weigh 205, I want to say, maybe. My weight fluctuates because I'm diabetic and I exercise and I eat good food when I eat. So, at any rate, you can throw your weight around on the bike without it tipping over. I've almost had mine tip over once, but that's a whole other story. So it's really high quality. I mean, it weighs more than a Sunny. We've got a Sunny at my local gym, and it's pretty light compared to the Peloton. So that's one good thing, that it's heavy. But it also means that if you're going to move the thing, it's not easy. Get some help. Get some help moving this thing around. I moved it because I moved out of that house, and now I'm, captain single living in an apartment. And so I moved it to my apartment, and I did it myself. And I almost died. I mean, literally the thing almost fell on me on the stairs. Don't do that. And if you do move it, even if it's just across the house, you need to calibrate the bike because, jarring it suddenly, its resistance mechanism is electromagnetic. It's not friction based. Okay. So, you need to recalibrate it if it gets jarred or jostled around. It's not a huge deal to do. It's not a huge deal. I'll post a link on how to calibrate a Peloton on the fitness Twitter so that if you ride a Peloton, you can actually check it out and calibrate it properly. That's one of the biggest complaints about people on the leaderboards is I'm working twice as hard as this person. I know they're not any more fit than me. How are they doing so much better on the leaderboards? Well, one of you probably needs to calibrate your bike. Either theirs is calibrated too light or yours is calibrated too heavy. That's most likely what it is. So you want to calibrate it. How do you calibrate it? It's a little bit of a process. I'm not going to explain it on the air, but I'll post a link. I'll post a link in the Twitter for how to calibrate your Peloton. So you want to make sure that the bike is calibrated. You want to make sure that you memorize the numbers for how high your seat is and how far forward it is and how high your handlebars are. Mine's really easy because my seat is all the way forward, so I don't have to know which mark it's on. My handlebars are all the way up because I'm 6'5", and the seat is up at 40. That's my setting is 40. Now the Peloton riders are going, 40? Are you kidding? Yeah, I have really long legs. Okay, like I said, I'm 6'5", so 40. In fact, funny story, when I was at the studio this last time, because I was there in December doing my 300th, when I was at the studio, I had the front row right in front of Jess King, and so the camera kept getting shots of the back of my head, and the poor girl that was behind me afterwards, we're all lined up to take our picture with Jess King. The poor girl that was behind me was in front of me in the line, and she's like, "You're really tall." I was like, "Yeah, I've never heard that one before." And she's like, "I couldn't even see the instructor." I felt bad for her. I mean, what am I going to do? It's my genetics. Do I have to sit in the back and not deal with anything just because I'm tall? No, just grow a few inches. No, I'm not really that much of a jerk. But I didn't say any of those things. I just, I felt bad for her. I did. But not bad enough to where I felt like next time I should sit in back. Because, I bought a plane ticket to New York too. Why don't I get to do my thing as well? So, more about the bike. The bikes in the studio are vastly different than the bike that you will buy and have at home. And there's a reason for that. Okay, so the studio is nice and dark. They want the instructor to be the brightest thing on the screen. Understandably, you don't want to get distracted. There used to be this guy named Brad who would wear these crazy colored clothing and do these crazy activities so that it would distract, and everybody hated him. So they turned the lights down even lower on the people in the background. So, it's hard to tell who's who, but if people know you, they'll know that you're in the audience there. So the screens are much smaller, so they don't cast as much light, and they don't interfere with the visuals of the cameras in the Peloton studio. So, besides, there's no reason for you to see the instructor on your screen. All you need is your stats, right? Your telemetry, which I should probably talk about. So all you need to see are your stats, which include your resistance, your cadence, how fast you're pedaling. If you're wearing a heart monitor, I don't think anybody wears a heart monitor in the studio, but if you do at home, you get your heart rate also. So, and then you also get your power zone if you've done your FTP test. And no, I don't mean file transfer protocol. Sometime we'll get into what power zone training is. I want to save that for a whole other podcast. You also get your heart rate zone if you're doing heart rate zone training. So you get all this telemetry stuff on this screen. Well, the instructor can see all that stuff too, which is really a pretty cool thing. So in studio, you've just got this little screen, tiny little screen. It's just telling you what your stats are. Obviously, you don't need to see the instructor because the instructor is right there in front of you. So it works out. It works out. But the bike at home, your screen is massive. I mean, it's absolutely massive. Which is a pretty cool thing. Because you're only 1.5 feet away from the thing, if you think about it. But it's pretty neat that you've got this massive screen so you can clearly see everything going on in front of you, even while sweat's dripping in your eyes and you're moving back and forth and breathing like a dragon. Yes, there is a camera on the monitor. No, the instructors do not see you. Okay, there's a really funny video out there where this guy is riding and his instructor can see him. No, the instructors can't see you. Neither can other riders. You have to turn it on if you want to be able to see each other, like with just your friends. Nobody does that, though. Like, nobody. I tried it once and immediately turned it off. Nobody wants to see me like that. And I don't want to see anybody else like that either. It's like, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. So there is a camera, but no, it's not turned on. It's not enabled. It doesn't do anything. If you're a big Snowden type, then you probably want to put a little Band-Aid over the camera or something. So let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts as we wrap up the program. The do's and don'ts of being on the Peloton. Do not go into the community ever and talk about squeaky pedals or your butt hurts or whatever. At least until you do a search of the group. They will eat you alive. There are certain topics that are like almost memes in the Peloton community. So don't ask questions without at least doing an initial search. Use your Facebook search feature. Please, people. Please use your search feature. Don't think that, don't leave your shoes on the bike. Learn to clip in, learn to clip out. Before you take your first ride, clip in and out a few times because they are clip pedals, where you clip in and actually they call them clipless, although you clip in. So you clip to the bike, your feet are stuck there until you twist your heel out. You kick your heel out by twisting your knee in, and then you get out. Practice that a few times before you ride. I can't believe it whenever I see somebody post pictures of their shoes still stuck to the pedals of their bike. It drives me and most of the rest of the community insane. So there you have it. There you have it in a nutshell. We've talked all about the Peloton. There's plenty more information out there. I'm sure you're going to hear me talk about it a few more times at least in the future. But on my first show, I wanted to talk about something I know and I love, and that's my Peloton bike. So thank you for listening to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be rad. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the GSMC Fitness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, and any app where you listen to podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, we cover it all. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and listen to these podcasts on YouTube. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.